What if the speed of light was 30 miles an hour?
What if Earth had two suns?
Which cereal mascot would win in a fight?
What if everyone lived underground?
What if it
What
rained
if money
food?
grew on
What
trees?
if pigs could fly?
I don't know if that would actually happen.
It's much easier to store a unicycle than to store a horse.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host, Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
Guys, we are doing a fun one today, I think. So this week we are doing a grab bag episode, which is slightly different than our normal episodes, though we're probably doing half grab bags, half normal questions at this point. But basically, we all did our own hypothetical question based around a single theme, and this week's theme is children's books. So we each took the premise of a children's book or something in a children's book, expanded on that in our own hypothetical question, and then assumedly kind of went off the rails from there.
I was a child at one point. I should be an expert.
I hope that's like in your notes. It's like fit this I'm a child joke in there somewhere.
Yeah, I used to be a child.
I mean, this definitely came up because we're now hitting the niece. Well, we don't have any kids ourselves yet, but all the nieces and nephews are going around.
Yeah, there are probably a bunch of children's books I've never heard of ever.
Oh wait, there's very many.
Yeah, I realize.
I also
that.
like that.
Oh, yeah.
I also like there's like a trend now of like ironic book like children's books for kids, like nuclear physics for babies or stuff like that. Or my personal favorite is P for pterodactyl, where it's an alphabet book, but all the first letters are silent.
Amazing.
And they dig pretty hard to find words with like a silent B in front of it. Like, but why can't you hear a pterodactyl go to the bathroom? Because the P is silent.
Yeah. All right.
All right, enough of that. Enough of that.
We all hated that joke.
Yep, sure did.
I'm gonna go ahead and get us started. Mine is actually was also the theme of my niece's first birthday party, so near and dear to my heart. I did the Very Hungry Caterpillar. For those of you who don't know, the Very Hungry Caterpillar is a tale about a caterpillar who eats an increasing number of food items throughout a week, until he absolutely gorges himself on a Saturday, then he gets a tummy ache, he eats a leaf on Sunday, and then he cocoons and becomes a butterfly. So kind of does a bunch of escalating eating, and then metamorphoses into a butterfly. But the little inside joke with my family that I like is I actually prefer the German version of the story, which is the same, but the name of the book is Die kleine Raupe Nimmersatt. Which translates directly to The Little Caterpillar Never Full, which is a bit more ominous to me and got me thinking, what if the Very Hungry Caterpillar didn't decide to cocoon on that Sunday and just kept going, continuing to increase eating more and more each day. So the first thing I want to establish is how long I was going to let my caterpillar, quote unquote, run free before he started cocooning. So I took a look at some of the longer lifespan caterpillars. The absolute longest lifetime I found for a caterpillar is the woolly bear. It's not the woolly bear caterpillar. It's just called a caterpillar called the woolly bear, which I find kind of funny.
That's confusing.
Yeah, it's very deceptive, honestly.
It remains a caterpillar for 14 years. But it's kind of an asterisk on there because the reason it's so long is that they live in the Arctic, if you could guess from the woolly name. And they only spend about 1 month out of 12 not just being in a frozen stasis. So that really only translates to 14 months of eating. The longest lifespan I could find for a caterpillar that doesn't spend most of its time being frozen is the fox moth, which has a lifespan about 5 years. So what if the Very Hungry Caterpillar went on for 5 years, kind of in its pattern? So the time span established, the question becomes, how much will it eat during that time, and how much will it increase? So let's start with what it did eat in the book. On Monday, it ate 1 apple. Tuesday, it ate 2 pears. and then 3 plums, 4 strawberries, 5 oranges on Friday. And then on Saturday, it ate 1 piece of chocolate cake, 1 ice cream cone, 1 pickle, 1 piece of Swiss cheese, 1 slice of salami, 1 lollipop, 1 piece of cherry pie, 1 sausage, 1 cupcake, and 1 slice of watermelon. On Sunday, it ate 1 leaf and then became cocoon. So I'm discounting Sunday. We're taking Saturday kind of as the peak of that week. And the data point for 1 leaf gets taken off.
The leaf makes the difference.
And it turns out I'm not the only one curious of how much this caterpillar is eating, because I did find a paper in the Journal of Interdisciplinary Science Topics at the University of Leicester by Louisa Perry titled, "Is the Very Hungry Caterpillar Unusually Hungry for a Caterpillar?" And it had a lot of good info, including like estimates for how much it ate, the calorie count for what it ate, and how it related to its body weight, yada yada yada. And I was very happy to have a place where I could almost wholesale steal all the information, except their work I had to modify because their base assumption is that the book doesn't specify how much of each food item the caterpillar eats, so it therefore eats the whole item, which I think is ridiculous because if you read the book, very clearly there's just one hole going through each of the things, and it says it ate through 1 apple, it ate through 2 pears.
I always just assumed it ate the whole thing, but I guess you're right.
And there's very clear there's literally like hole punches in the book where it's like it ate this hole through.
Yeah.
And caterpillars that do grow like in fruits like that typically do not eat the whole thing either. They eat their kind of paths through it. So I'm of the opinion, people can differ to my, can have a different opinion, but I'm of the opinion that it's just the singular hole that it eats through. So I basically took all the numbers and changed them so that it fits my idea of how the story went. So putting adjusted calorie counts back onto the daily intake, I came up with, so day 1 eats through 1 apple, that's about 0.6 calories. Day 2, 2 pears, 1.85 calories. 3 plums, 2.55. 4 strawberries are pretty much a bit smaller than the rest of those fruits, dips down to about 1.5 calories. Before ending strong with the 5 oranges at 3 calories. And then Saturday, even though it's a lot of different items, they're not particularly like big or long, so there's not actually that much volume, but some of them are pretty calorie heavy, like the meats are pretty calorie heavy, like the salami and the sausage make up a lot of this, the cake and pie, but all comes out to 20 calories. So it's like starts off at less than 1, hovers around between 1 and 3 before shooting up to 20 calories on Saturday. So then fit a second order polynomial equation to that, and you get the calories it eats per day is simply equal to 1.4717 times days squared minus 7.4598 days times the days plus 8.7212. So with that, I have the power to know how many calories this caterpillar is eating at each day of its life all the way up through its 5 years. So on Sunday, instead of eating its 1 dumb leaf, the caterpillar instead is going to eat 28 calories. At the end of week 2, it's already eating 192 calories. This is it's an exponential equation. Okay, it's going to keep increasing more and more as time goes on. At the end of the month, we already have this caterpillar breaking 1,000 calories per day, and by 40 days, it's at the healthy 2,000 calorie diet that we all enjoy. But we're not done there. After a year, 193,000 calories per day. 2 years, 778,000, and on the last day of being a caterpillar, when we decided to finally go and cocoon, we are at 4.888 million calories intake per day for the very hungry caterpillar. Just to put it into perspective, 4.8 million calories is the equivalent of 1,778 kilograms of meat, which is the equivalent of the weight of 2 fully grown cows.
Eating
every day.
Like all the organs and bones and stuff.
Yeah, I just got the weight of the cow.
Okay.
The weight of the cow is like 900 kilos.
Yeah.
So like there's less meat than that on a cow. So it might have to get, that much meat from like 4 cows. Depending on its routing, its pathing through the cows. I guess if I use my same like routing math if it's just eating,
it's going to be a lot of cows then.
It's going to waste a lot of cow. It's going to be like doing 30 cows, but, just cutting one hole through each of them. So that's where I kind of ended the math. The last thing I wanted to see was how big our actual caterpillar is. Obviously, it's going to be much bigger than your average caterpillar. But the average caterpillar in real life is actually very hungry. The average species of caterpillar will eat 100 times its body mass in each day. So if we just take our 2 cows per day and divide that by 100, our caterpillar is still actually going to be kind of cute at around 40 pounds. So we have this caterpillar kind of the size of like a small dog, like a medium dog, like a small medium dog sized caterpillar that's just going to like hop up onto a cow and just like drill straight through it until it has eaten 1,800 kilograms of meat. And then it'll maybe get a stomachache and cocoon into... Oh, I should forget how big the butterfly is, but pretty big butterfly. And there you have it. That's what would happen if the very hungry caterpillar could never be full.
Would it be able to fly? I feel like it wouldn't be able to fly.
This is basically just like Mothra, right? Like,
yeah, this is how Mothra's born.
If it weighed 40 pounds, it would be really tough for it to fly, given that eagles are like 10. Like, they're like in the 10 to 12 range, I think. So it's gonna weigh 4 times that, and the flying math is not friendly to birds. Like, the heavier you get, the way more effort you have to put into flying. It's not unreasonable.
I just picture the caterpillar in A Bug's Life when he gets wings.
Tiny, the wings don't get any bigger.
Yeah.
It's just a giant grub with tiny wings. Yeah, that one won't be able to fly. I don't have to even math that one for you. Ben, what did you cover?
So I knew that if we're doing this, if we're talking about children's books, there is no way that we're going to do this without getting something from Dr. Seuss in here. That would just be a travesty.
The Good Doctor. Was he a real doctor?
Was he a real doctor? I don't think so.
I'm going to Google that while you continue.
Actually checking. No, I don't think so. No, it doesn't.
I love how just like they try to like pretend like he had some education. Like, he briefly studied English literature at Oxford after graduating from Dartmouth, but instead became a cartoonist.
Well, so also on Wikipedia, he adopted the name Dr. Seuss when he was an undergraduate. So even if that was true, it was already a lie from the beginning.
But in 1955, Dartmouth awarded him an honorary doctorate. So actually, he was a doctor.
All right, so there you go. Fair enough. Anyway, Dr. Seuss. We all love Dr. Seuss. He's great. But I ran into a problem, which is that a lot of the Dr. Seuss stuff doesn't really lend itself to what we're doing on our show, because a lot of his books are kind of just lists of stuff. Like, they're fun, they're great, but like they're just kind of a list of a bunch of weird things, which doesn't necessarily, give a whole lot to go off of for an answer. But I did actually find one that gave a pretty good, scenario to work with, which is Yurtle the Turtle. So Yurtle the Turtle is the most famous story in a 1958 collection of stories by Dr. Seuss called, appropriately enough, Yurtle the Turtle and Other Stories.
Headliner.
There's 2 other ones and no one really remembers them, but Yurtle the Turtle is, kind of the headliner. Yeah. Basic idea. So there is a turtle named Yurtle, who is the king of the pond that he lives in on the faraway island of Salomesond. He sits on a rock, and he calls that rock his throne, and he rules over the pond because he can see all of the pond when he looks down on it from on top of that rock. And then he of course, has the logical progression from there. If I am higher up, I can see more and therefore rule over more. So he calls over 9 turtles and has them stack up and stands on their backs. At which point he says he can see a mile, which I don't know how true that is. That seems a little ambitious for being on top of 9 turtles, but sure, we'll go with it. Very excited because then he can see like a goat and a house and stuff, and that's awesome. And he says he rules them too. And he stays up there until noon, at which point another turtle named Mac, who's at the bottom of the stack, sighs and asks how long they have to do this because it hurts to have 9 turtles on top of you. And Yurtle says, "Shut up, I'm a king, and also get me more turtles." So he calls over.
If you thought 9 was bad.
Yeah, so he calls over 200 more turtles.
Oh, shiz.
Yeah, it ramps
Not
up pretty
necessarily.
That
quickly.
escalated fast.
It does.
Dr. Seuss is like, oh, I only got like 4 pages left in this book. Gotta make it, gotta
Yeah.
accelerate.
It literally escalated fast.
Well, they are turtles.
Well, okay, it's not that fast.
Escalated slow.
Yeah. But the progression was quick. Anyway, point being, on top of 200 turtles, he can see 40 miles, which once again, not going to fact check that. Dr. Seuss, sure, I'm sure you did the math. And is even happier because now he can see everything, and he is the ruler of all. But then as he's so excited, he looks up and he sees the moon high up above him and just cannot bear to have something that high above him, and calls for, and I quote, about 5,607 more turtles. And at
Yeah,
this point,
this honorary doctorate that Dr. Seuss got is not helping him with his math.
this was what was the honorary doctorate? It was like 50 something. Yeah, so he actually already had it. You're right. I don't know Dartmouth.
1955. So
yeah. At this point, I'm going to just read straight from the page because it's very good. As he's requesting these 5,000 plus more turtles. But as Yurtle the Turtle King lifted his hand and started to order and give the command, that plain little turtle below in the stack, that plain little turtle whose name was just Mac, decided he'd taken enough, and he had. And that plain little lad got a little bit mad, and that plain little Mac did a plain little thing. He burped. And his burp shook the throne of the king. And yeah, the Mac at the bottom of the tower burps, and that shakes the whole tower, and Yurtle falls and lands in the pond. And it's all a parable about, actually, fascism. Yurtle, according to Dr. Seuss, represents Hitler. Fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What how cheery.
Yeah. Also, fun fact about it, the fact that he burps was kind of a problem for the publisher, Random House. They actually had a meeting, including the president of the publisher, because, and I quote, nobody had ever burped before on the pages of a children's book. So, groundbreaking.
Well, I imagine many children have burped onto their
Well,
books.
yes, but it had not been printed in the pages of a children's book. So from this, we're going to get to our actual hypothetical here, which is, what if you ruled all that you could see? I guess more specifically, what if we lived in some sort of weird government system where ownership/rule was determined by visibility? I'm going to say that sort of in the spirit of the story that ties, because ties are obviously going to happen, are broken by height. Whoever's highest above sea level wins. Whatever. You get the idea. So theoretically, what is the furthest away that you could see if you're trying to figure out what your domain would be, right? I took a lot of this from this great article from the Calgary Vision Center. They did a lot of the math. So thank you, Calgary Vision Center. I spelled your name Centre in my notes just for you, even though it felt wrong. So the first limitation, right, is the curvature of the Earth. So if you're in a perfectly flat place, there's no mountains or trees or buildings or anything between you and the horizon, you can see around 4.7 kilometers, which is 2.9 miles. Which, if you just go out in a circle all around that gives you a domain of around 26.4 square miles, which is pretty decent. It's not bad. But obviously, you don't have to stay on the ground. You can elevate yourself, much like Yurtle did. The example that they give, because they are the Calgary Vision Center, is that if you go to the top of the Bow Tower in downtown Calgary, which is 236 meters or 774 feet tall, you can see around 11 times as far, 54 kilometers or 33.5 miles. They helpfully point out that from the top of the tower on a clear day, you could see the town of High River, which from context I assume is a town in Canada that's roughly 54 kilometers from downtown Calgary. But, thanks, Vision Center of Calgary.
Thanks for the relevant context clues to me.
Yep, probably makes more sense if you live in Calgary. But if you were, say, on top of the Bow Tower in downtown Calgary, that would give you a domain of 3,525 square miles, which is around 2.25 Rhode Islands, which is pretty good. It's not bad.
Why don't you just pick a bigger state?
Because that was the one where the math worked out the best. I don't know. It was the only one where it was more than 2, but there weren't any where it was exactly 1. So it was It was like that or like 1.4. I don't remember what the next one was. Like Delaware's. I thought 2.25 Rhode Island's was better. You know, sue me, whatever. It's fine. So obviously, you know, you can elevate if the thing you're looking at is higher up. You can see it from further. But the other factor that actually come into play is refraction, which is, you know, refraction. What's happening, right, is the light will effectively bend because of differences in the densities of the medium it's moving through. And if you have cool air near the surface of the Earth and warm air above it, it can actually bend around the curvature of the planet and increase the distance you can see something. So the like calculated furthest sightline on Earth is from Mount Dankova in Kyrgyzstan to Hindutag in China, which is 538 kilometers or 334 miles. Which it obviously doesn't actually work like this, but if you could see that in all directions, that would be a 350,000 square mile domain, which is pretty impressive. I will also say that one is only theoretical. They haven't actually like done it. The furthest photographed sightline in the world is 443 kilometers, which is like, you know, 4/5 of that, which is from, I didn't try to pronounce this, Pic de Finestre in the Spanish Pyrenees to Pic Gaspard in the French Alps. I'm going to say that's, you know, close enough. So there actually is, you know, photographic evidence of that one that you can see, you know, beyond the what the curvature there should allow you to, which is pretty cool.
Do you think Mufasa had to have like a follow-up with Simba when he was a bit older and had done some physics courses to be like, so anyway, yeah, it's everything the light touches, but also more accurately, it's everything the light refracts, sees fit to refract around, and on colder days, you're actually gonna get a little bit more realm than you normally would.
Yeah, it was complicated. Simba it didn't really click for him, not gonna lie. So what was this?
I don't know sure if he was old enough, but you know, that was probably a planned talk that never happened.
Yeah, okay, fair. You're right. So what do we actually do with this, right? Like what's our takeaway from these domains and sightlines and everything? And clearly there is a height-based arms race. The sad fact of which is that plebs like us will never ever have the resources to build some stupid tall tower on a mountain to see everything. So I'm going to say we're going to leave that to the billionaires and hope that we get lucky and like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos throw each other off the top of the Burj Khalifa while wrestling for control or something. The actual answer is probably billionaires and blimps that like stay just below cloud level. Once again, this all sucks. So we're going to kind of not ignore that, but work around that because that's what we would have to do in the situation. So the answer is you're not going to be able to rule. So instead, let's find the loophole. Let's just not be seen. Become ungovernable. If you can't be seen...
Anarchy!
If you can't be seen, you can't be ruled.
It's the message of the Dr. Seuss book.
It is. So my takeaway is the best option. I tried to look into a few things. The best one is something we've actually talked about before, which is live in a cave. This is actually something that more people in the world do than you expect. I think the ones we talked about before were... there are roughly 30 million people in China that live in cave homes called yadongs, up in like northern China, I think. But even closer than China, there are examples. Example that I found through Wikipedia as they were listing the exotic places where people live in caves. It also included Mississippi, where there is a family that were looking to buy a home in 2003 and found an eBay offering for 3 acres with an empty sandstone cave. And then realized that it had 15,000 feet of naturally insulated quarry that they could live in inside. So they just built a house in a sandstone mine. And they lived there. I'm assuming they probably still do. I don't know for sure, but...
I mean, you don't give that up.
You don't give that up, right?
How could you go to anything else? Like, if you live in the cave, how can you ever be like, I'm going to give up cave live? You have to live there forever.
So it did mention that... So the bare walls of the cave do shed sand, which is not ideal. But what they've done
How do you ever live in a cave? You have to sell it immediately. There's no reason to stay.
Well, what they did was they just put umbrellas over things. Like, for example, their kitchen. I'm putting a great picture that, of course, the listeners can't see. But you guys can.
They can on
this
YouTube.
Great shot of their kitchen where they have just a little umbrella over where they have the food prep area. And also their babies in the front. There's also this great picture from later in the article of them with a little pool table that also has a nice little umbrella over it. See, that looks nice, right? Like that looks cozy. You know, that's great.
The floor is covered in sand.
The floor is covered in sand, but you know what? They are their own masters, and you know you can't put a price on that. So I guess my main takeaway here is, if we lived in this weird height and vision based society, live in a cave and get used to sand.
If you in this world, if you stop seeing something, does it cease to be yours? Like if you go to sleep or something?
I decided not to go too far into the mechanics of that because honestly, it gets complicated.
Is there a royal object permanent? If you blink, and then if you're eye level with someone, and whoever blinks first immediately rules the other.
Yeah, I feel like there's some loophole you do with like you're in a blimp that has like a panoptic camera on the bottom or something. I don't know.
The loophole is when you see someone about to be higher than you, about to observe you, you hit them with a shovel, and then they stay lower than you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Seuss, for this valuable life lesson. Anyway, Chris, what did you do?
So the children's book...
What is your burp that shook the king's throne?
My burp is Waldo. Where's Waldo? That's the book that I chose. Or if you're from England, Where's Wally? But I'm not going to say
that. Are you also going to end with living in a cave?
What are the odds?
Yeah. I'm not going to say Where's Wally because that's weird to me, and I grew up with him as Waldo, so I'm going to keep on saying Where's Waldo. But if you don't know who Waldo is, he is in a book of pictures, illustrations with like a ton of people around him, and you have to find him in the crowd, and that's his thing. And he must be either like immortal or like a time traveler or something, because he appears in like all these different time periods, like dinosaur times and like the ancient pyramids and stuff like that. He has 7 primary books, and I think there's some like spin-offs or like collections of
just 7.
I was just gonna say,
yeah,
it's only 7.
As far,
wow.
I think 7 official main books. I don't know if there might be some like, I think there's like an app or something that has maybe more. I don't know.
Not to even mention all the like Find Frederick and Locate Larry spinoffs that people have made.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty easy to knock off Waldo, I think. But the first thing I wanted to figure out was like how many people are actually around Waldo, because if he's a real person, I feel like this is like he's gonna have people around him all the time. And the thing is, Waldo has kind of shrunk on the page over the years. So like in the first book, he was 0.99 centimeters squared on the page. And then in the later books, he gets as small as 0.17 centimeters squared.
This sounds like somebody like trying to justify why they couldn't find Waldo.
Yeah.
I'm used to Waldo being 0.97 centimeters. Of course I'm not going to find him if she's just, look, it's 0.17 now. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's a pretty big reduction. It's an 83% reduction in size. So
we're in a Waldo recession, everybody.
And then like in the first page of the first book, there are 225 people. And then in the first page of the last book, there's 850 people. So they increased the amount of people around him drastically over the years. And I kind of figured like this is going to be the posse that's always around him. So like wherever he goes, people are kind of just going to flock around him. And that's like his superpower. So that'll be what happens when he like travels around. And the locations that he goes to, the first book is kind of weird. It like just started with like really mundane locations like the beach or a museum or an airport. But then like the second book on, they just like immediately ramped it up, and suddenly he was like with the Vikings and dinosaurs and pyramids and the Stone Age. And I don't know why they made it so mundane in the first one, but they did. But a lot of the thing is, a lot of these locations are actually like hostile scenes. Like it actually took me by surprise a little when I was looking at them, because I never really like paid attention to it really. But like Waldo is often found in the middle of like a battle where like people are stabbing each other and shooting each other and stuff, and it's actually surprisingly violent.
Is Waldo okay? Where's Waldo, and does he need a doctor?
Well, Waldo is usually pretty fine. Like, he's smiling and he's happy in the middle of the scene. Everyone else is just
I would hope so. I would be
dying
pretty
around
bummed if I spent like 3 minutes looking for Waldo and he's like impaled on a pike in the left part of the page.
But I think
he is.
I think that this violence is actually like part of his superpower. Like, he goes around the world and he's like the harbinger of death, and like war and violence just follows him around. And he always ends up like unscathed. So this is obviously a problem. He needs to be eliminated. So, I wanted to figure out how difficult it would be to do this. So first I need to figure out how big his bubble of influence actually is. Like, how far away do we need to stay from him in order to not be influenced by the violence? So 150 people is as big as it's ever gotten in any of the books. I need to find out how much like square footage that was going to be. I found an event capacity calculator. I put in 150 people, and they said for like a trade show type of event, you need around like 176,000 square feet. And that would work out to a bubble of influence that has like a radius of around 237 feet. So that's how far you need to stay away from him. You just need to be 237 feet away, which actually isn't that far. That's just over the wingspan of a Boeing 747. So, I mean, it's still a pretty good distance away from him. You're not going to be able to just like walk up and stab him or like Assassin's Creed him or something. But you will be able to just like snipe him from a distance, and that should be fine. I don't think you'll have a problem with that. The issue is obviously finding him in the crowd. So, how hard is it to find Waldo in this crowd?
Elite U.S. Navy SEAL sniper versus a crowd.
Yeah. So I tried to like look up average times for like people actually finding Waldo in the books. I couldn't find it. Like, I couldn't find a time. I was actually surprised I couldn't find anything on that, because it seems like someone would have looked that up at some point or done some sort of study. But there was one guy in 2015 named Randall S. Olson. He noticed that of the 68 locations, there was kind of like a pattern to Waldo's position on the page. And he came up with 3 lessons. So first, Waldo is almost never in the top left corner of the page. This is mostly because I think every Waldo illustration has like a postcard thing. It's supposed to be a postcard from Waldo from the location that he's on that page. And that's always on the top left. So Waldo isn't there. He's also rarely on the edges of the page, just because that'd be too easy to find Waldo. And then he's almost never on the bottom right page. Bottom right of the page. And I don't really know why that is.
That's the first 2 places you look. You would naturally start reading a book in the top left, and then you're like, well, if I'm looking for something they're hiding, they're going to put it at the end, bottom right.
Yeah, well, I think the article that I looked up for this, they theorized that like when you're flipping the page, that's like the first part of the page that's revealed is the bottom right. I don't know, that kind of sounds made up, but I don't know. But this guy, Randall S. Olson, he tried to find like the optimal path between each position that Waldo has been in before. So like basically just passing through each of the positions without backtracking or having like minimal backtracking, just to find the optimal path of searching for Waldo. And he used what's called a genetic algorithm to find the path, and he came up with an optimal path. you'll actually find Waldo much faster than the normal person if you use this. So he starts in the lower left, then you go to the upper right, and then you go to the lower right, and that's basically it. And it's pretty simple. There's a more complicated version of that, but like he simplified it just so it's easier because you're not going to remember the more complicated one. But he was able to find, or he found that you're able to find Waldo 10 seconds, or in less than 10 seconds for most illustrations using this technique. And there are a few like outliers in the illustration. So like if I think there is some where Waldo's in the top left. So if you use this method, then it's going to probably take a while to find him there. But for the most part, the system works.
I want to do like a competitive Where's Waldo party now. Like just get a couple of the same Where's Waldo's book, and then just like everyone just open at the same time, and whoever finds Waldo first on like some number of pages wins. That would be fun.
Well, now you know the optimal technique. Bottom left,
I wish I didn't.
top right, bottom right. Now this method isn't perfect because it's based on like the positions that he's already been in. So if they're like new illustrations, it's not necessarily going to help. I want to see if there's anything better. So in 2018, a company called Red Pepper released a video of an AI finding Waldo. They trained it to recognize Waldo's face, and then it like looked around, and if it was more than 95% confident, then it would point him out. And it was reliably able to find Waldo in less than 5 seconds every time. So that's pretty good. 5 seconds. That's still using the book though. That's still like an illustration. This isn't real life. But I wanted to see if like we could translate this into real life. Using like face recognition.
I had heard about this robot like prior to you doing this answer, and it's a great story. And also the name of it is There's Waldo, which makes me so happy.
Yeah, here's Waldo. So I wanted to like see how good face recognition actually is in real life, and see if we can translate this method and find Waldo so that we can snipe him out. AI-driven facial recognition is actually kind of a controversial technology. It's actually banned in Portland, Oregon, and some other cities as well. And I don't really want to get into the ethics or like the politics of it. It's a touchy subject, but I just want to focus on the technology itself. There are different techniques that I don't necessarily understand the nuances of. There's like machine learning and deep learning and convolution neural networks and like support vector machines. I don't know what any of that means. They're all facial recognition terms. But I chose a study that seemed to like match my situation. So the study is called Tracking Missing Person in Large Crowd Gathering Using Intelligent Video Surveillance. So it uses live video in like an unconstrained large gathering to find one person, which is basically what we're trying to do. We're trying to find Waldo in a large crowd. And they found that large crowds pose many issues compared to just like individuals or small groups. Because people are like moving around. Some people's faces are covered and like people are out of focus and stuff. There are just a lot more variables in real life, but the concept is still the same as like in just a still image. And they in their study they found that their facial recognition had an accuracy of 70 to 75%, which is pretty like there's room for improvement, but it is still pretty good. And I'm pretty confident we can find Waldo using this technology. Even if it's not like the first try, you don't have to find him in 5 seconds. You have plenty of time. You'll just use facial recognition, and then you can snipe him, and then you can save the world because he's a bad dude. And then just as a side fun fact that really has nothing to do with anything, but I found it while I was searching for facial recognition stuff. Apparently, there's a thing called Bear ID, where they use facial recognition to identify bears, and it's more accurate than the crowd thing. It's 83% accurate, so that's fun.
So if you say all bears look the same, you're really being specious.
Yeah.
Because clearly they're more distinct.
But yeah, that's my answer. You'd be able to find Waldo using facial recognition and his reign of death that follows him.
Ben, do you remember that Northeastern did a real life Where's Waldo?
So it was part of the Husky hunt, right?
Yeah, so our school did a an event that was I'm going to call it a scavenger hunt. It doesn't encompass the scope of what this monstrosity was.
Yeah.
But basically they would organize a 48-hour 600 person city-wide scavenger hunt with hundreds of clues, puzzles, events. And my favorite of the events, in concept anyway, was that they had one dude dress up as Waldo and would wander the city for the duration of the hunt. And if you were able to tag him, you would get a bunch of points for finding Waldo. But the trick was, the addition twist that I love was, not only did you have to find him, you had to catch him. And the person that got elected as, or was chosen as Waldo each time, was usually the captain of the track team. So if you found him, you better hope that you have enough energy and that to go and actually run this guy down. But I want to share that because I love that story. Anyway, that does it for this bit of the episode. We're going to take a quick pause and jump into our Would You Rather question for the day. All right, this one at least is weird as heck. This Would You Rather is brought to you by Cosmo.
Oh boy.
Thanks, Internet. Would you rather sweat maple syrup or cry strawberry jam? Sweat maple syrup or cry strawberry jam? Chris, I'm going to start with you today.
Sweat maple syrup, cry strawberry jam. Would the strawberry jam be painful? Tears aren't
feel like
painful.
it would be.
Probably a little bit.
Okay. Because if it wasn't painful, then it would be pretty easy for me because sweat is everywhere and the jam is just localized to your eyes. But
if it's not painful, does your baseline what eye moisture be red?
Oh, that's a really good question. And I think the answer is yes.
Everything would just have a red tint.
Are your eyes going to attract ants?
Well, I mean,
I guess your sweat would too if it
your
was
sweat
maple
would
syrup.
too.
So it's kind of a moot point.
Would you
sweating maple syrup is not
sweating maple
ideal?
syrup wouldn't provide the same function as sweat. It wouldn't cool you off.
It might a little.
It would just be
It's
really
not gonna
hot maple syrup.
Evaporate. Yeah.
I mean, you're just so bad. The friction is a problem.
Would you, if you did either of these, would you eat the byproduct?
No.
I mean, I was
You wouldn't
thinking
eat your
about
own
that.
sweat?
All right. Would you just because you could just carry around a pancake and
Oh, time for my 2:00 underarm pancake?
No, I'm all right. So I'm a runner, and when I run, I sweat, and specifically, I sweat. Well, I sweat everywhere, but on my forehead, and it runs down my eyes, and it's annoying. But if I sweat
Had
maple
a
syrup,
pancake headband.
I could carry I just carry a couple pancakes, and as I'm running, just sweep across, get the sweat out of the way, and then just, keep fueling up a little bit as I'm running.
Here's the thing: your body odor is gonna be amazing.
It really is.
Like, I keep imagining, like, oh, it's like maple syrup mixed with sweat, but no, just like straight,
It's just
clean
maple syrup.
Maple syrup.
Yeah.
You'd be able to sell it. You'd have
No.
more syrup. Like, you wouldn't be able to sell the jam because you wouldn't cry as often, I think, or you'd just be really sad if you did.
Chris, I'm going to go ahead and just say that you would not be able to sell your maple syrup sweat.
You wouldn't advertise that you're sweating it out.
Then you would not be able to produce enough to make it. You would not be able to sell enough to make it worth it. Like, the other maple syrup source is a tree. You are smaller than a tree.
Citation needed.
I don't know. How much do you sweat?
Less than a tree produces maple syrup, I think.
I don't produce enough volume of sweat to fill a syrup bottle.
All right. Well, okay. In Chris's defense, I will say that when I do a long run, my estimated sweat loss is like a little under a liter.
Yeah, it says the maximum sweat rate of an adult can be up to 2 to 4 liters per hour.
Yeah.
Or 10 to 14 liters per day.
I'll say this. You do. If it's part of your choice, you do you. I would not be selling my maple syrup sweat.
I might.
The value of a liter of maple syrup in Canadian dollars in 2019 was $11.63. I need to convert that to US dollars. Hold on. That's a little under $9. So it's like if you push yourself to the max and you sweat out 10 liters of maple syrup, it's like $90 a day.
It's not bad.
It's not bad.
Well, I don't think you can sweat the maximum amount all day.
I mean,
you just stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Do you drink? I mean, you have to drink more than 10 liters of water.
Yeah, it's doable.
It's not fun. I'm gonna say it's not doable for me for 1163.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. So if you did that every day, that would be about a little over $30,000 a year. That's not bad.
It's not bad.
Like you could sweat for a living.
Okay, so you guys, if you, I don't want to live that life. Also, you're gonna be like, you're gonna have expenses like replacing all of your clothes as you sweat through.
That's fair. Actually, well,
ideally,
facilitate
you want
collection-
to collect it. You want to collect the maple syrup, so it wouldn't be in your clothes.
you'd probably want to be naked and like standing in a bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah, time to go for my daily 10-hour naked bathtub treadmill run to get that cool $80 I plan to make today.
$90.
Yeah, don't
God, I
undersell
hope no
it.
one finds out how I
Story.
make this, or else my business will be closed.
I mean, it could be a fetish thing. Maybe you'll get more business. You can charge more to a very select clientele. All right.
Okay.
Anyway,
The strawberry jam crying can be...
If it does
Not
hurt your
ideal.
eyes, I imagine it would be like it would make you cry more.
Yeah,
and
it's
then
like a
you'd
feedback
have more
loop,
jam.
right?
Yeah.
getting yourself in quite a jam there.
can flavor your onions you're cutting up.
Hey, there you go.
I guess every time you get sad, you get slightly happier because you have strawberry jam.
I feel like you're going to.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, but like it's like a pretty good like. It's like you're like trying to keep crying, but you're like also eating strawberry jam.
Like I feel like you're gonna wind up crying more because anytime that just your eyes would water, you're probably gonna start crying because your eyes are then full of jam.
Yeah.
Although every time you cry, you're going to have to very, very quickly explain to people that you're not bleeding
No, don't
out
worry.
of your eyes horribly.
It's just jam.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
worry.
they're
It's
still
just strawberry
worried.
jam.
Pretty
That's
sure
when you
they're
pull
still
out-
worried.
You pull out the toast you carry with you.
I was cursed by a very chaotic neutral witch.
See, that would be a lot more painful than the pancakes.
It would. Everything is coming up syrup.
You just gotta have some sunglasses. You have sunglasses, with a little with a small like bucket underneath them to catch it.
Oh yeah, that looks way more normal.
Well, you just have rose tinted glasses, so no one can really see.
You'd
so it's
have
just like
buckets to collect, and then you'd sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can sell your strawberry
much-
jam too. What's the liter of that go for in Canada?
How much can a person cry in a day? I was gonna.
And the link to the suicide hotline is.
All right, I'm on Quora. As many as it needs to heal, as many as it needs to let go. Thanks.
Yeah, there you go.
Thanks.
One author suggests you can cry 96 tears.
I had seen 96 come up on Google there. Another suggests he could drown in his own tears. I feel like these might be allegorical. Okay, you make 5 to 10 ounces of tears a day, and there are 3 types. Are any of those types strawberry jam?
All 3 types.
Oh no, by default are the ones that humans make any of them strawberry jam, and we just don't hit that one very often.
Does the strawberry jam have seeds?
Oh, that's a really good question. I imagine so, right? Jam is the one that's made from whole fruit.
Jam, yeah. So I think it has to have seeds.
Is it an interesting question anymore if one of them is your eyes hurt all the time?
Well, I mean,
and you can't see.
The other one is you're constantly slightly syrupy, so it is...
So it is still a question.
Like, I think it's still a question.
I mean, you might get used to the pain.
No, absolutely not. Have your eyes ever just like itched for a day? You cannot get used to it. You will go absolutely wild.
Have you ever felt slightly sticky for your entire life?
Yeah, that's how I normally live.
Fair. All right.
Plus, like, you can not sweat for a bit. Like, if you don't do too much activity and you just have like,
it's a lot harder to control, though. Like with the eyes, with the crying, like you would be able to hide it, I think, a lot easier than the sweat, at least.
Unless it's the baseline eye moisture is jam.
Yeah, but you could still wear like sunglasses with like collection buckets, sort of, or it would just look like weird sunglasses.
Oh, I'm not into living with other people. I'm into like living with myself. I haven't gotten past to that point yet.
Okay.
But I do think it is getting time for final determinations here.
Okay, I think I'm gonna go maple syrup sweat because I like pancakes.
That is the worst reason to go with that, but sure. Ben?
I think I'm also gonna go with maple syrup sweat, not because of the pancake thing, although it is a nice bonus, and not because of the financial opportunity, because it's probably not worth it. But mostly just because I feel like you could actually get used to, like, I feel like you could get used to sweating maple syrup. It wouldn't be good, but you could get used to it. You would never get used to crying strawberry jam. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if we're gonna stick with it's gonna be painful, then I can't do the strawberry jam. I would otherwise do that one, but yeah, I'm not generally too sweaty a boy,
Yeah. Also, not for nothing, but we said 5 to 10 ounces of tears a day, and an 18-ounce jar of jam is like $5, so way worse value than the syrup. Just putting that out there.
I'm gonna put it out there, and I thought I made this point clear earlier. That is not in my calculation.
Just saying though.
I mean, if you already did this, I would sell it. Like if you're going to the gym already, why not just you're producing valuable.
Okay, I'm just gonna say no gym would ever allow you to be a member if you sweat maple syrup.
Yeah. Speaking of things that Chris is trying to sell that nobody wants, subscribe to our Patreon. For less than 1/10 of the price of a liter of Canadian maple syrup, you can become a Patreon to our podcast. one of our good Absurd Hypotheticals, and get access to all our bonus content that we release each month specifically for our patrons. www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals. If you are too busy rubbing your strawberry jam-filled eyes to do something like that, and therefore you've lost your job and have no money, you can also do free things like tell people about the podcast. Word of mouth is a great way to help grow the show. If you have a fun fact or want to use this hypothetical, this would you rather in a family setting, people are like, what are you talking about? Well, I listened to it on this podcast. It was called Absurd Hypotheticals. It was pretty cool. Check it out. You can download it anywhere podcasts are sold. So that is a nice free way to help the show grow. And also, of course, leave a review. Reviews help the show, helps people find it, stick around, and listen through click on their very first episode, helps it show up in search algorithms, all that good stuff. So if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review. It is super helpful, and we're super thankful for that. With all that out of the way, you can join us next time, where we answer the following question. And by question, I mean lots of questions, because we're doing a lightning round.